A warm welcome to MadeToGrow's podcast, where you get to meet exciting people with stories and mindsets that can inspire everyone, no matter where we are in life. My aim is that you as a listener get an insight into the genuine aspects of how we humans are motivated and developed, and how we deal with small and big challenges. And in addition, maybe have some insight in the guest's recipe for mastering life and career. My name is Sissel Naustdal, and I founded MadeToGrow based on a huge passion for developing potential, both in ourselves and in others. And I believe that when we feel we can use our potential, we feel better about ourselves, and we can be a greater resource for other people. And today I have the pleasure of having Hayley Weatherburn as my guest. And Hayley has a corporate background from working with business processes, and now she is a CEO and founder of Thriving with Nature, which is a platform for those who want to redefine success through self-sufficient living, natural well-being, and financial freedom to build a brighter future. In addition, she's helping to build a regenerative farm in Bali. And I had the pleasure of meeting you, Hayley, when I visited Bali recently. And then I also got to have a guided tour on this beautiful farm you are building. So from that, I know that you are both really skilled and passionate about what you are doing. So warm welcome, Hayley. I really look forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Cecile. It's so lovely, and it was such a great thing that you get to come to the farm and see what we're doing there. So thank you.
Thank you for being part of this conversation. So I think, first of all, I said briefly about your background, but I think it's great to hear a bit of your journey, life and career-wise. So with your own words, Hayley, what's your story?
Oh, okay. I'll summarize some key sort of points that happened for me, I guess. As a child, I got to experience a couple of years of my life living on Christmas Island, which is south of Java. We were the minority. It was mostly Malaysian and Chinese, and it was this tropical paradise. No one had keys to their houses. For 2 years, the kids ran around free and the adults had a great time. And it was this imprint that absolutely has been a foundational piece in my life. Fast forward, I had a very normal life on the mainland in Australia, growing up in a few towns on the east coast, and did the normal thing, went to university, got a degree, got a job, and started that normal process. But soon found myself, I actually ended up in depression in 2012 after I published my first book, and it was in that 12 months that I had to completely unravel this expectation of society, expectation of where we were supposed to go. And my main goal was to try and hear my soul and what did my soul want. And so in 2013, in October 2013, with only $200 in my pocket, I came to Bali on a voice that I'd heard at a breathwork event, like a breathwork sort of healing process that was starting to do that unraveling process. And so flew to Bali, and 10 years later, here I am. But in that journey, there was a continuation of sort of unraveling of expectations of my frame of work, of what I believed I needed. In 2017 was another pinnacle point when I did my first permaculture design course. And then all of a sudden, I felt a path laying in front of me, and I didn't know how that would look. 2017 is also the year that Thriving with Nature was born. If you go back to the Instagrams in 2017, that's when I first said, okay, I want to do something around this. I have no idea what it is, but this is something I want to build. And now I can't believe it. I'm, building a farm here in Bali up in the mountains. You can see it's actually an hour and a half away from most of the tourists. and starting to live a life of self-sufficiency and creating that online passion as well. So that's a very short version of my journey, but hopefully that highlights some of the pinnacle sort of changing moments that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice frame to talk from, because I really want to dive in a little bit. And so for me, this calling you say you had, what is that actually, and how did it come to you? Because I too believe strongly in the value of having some kind of life purpose, some kind of direction, some kind of guidance of what you are here to do in this life, right? But so many people struggle finding their purpose, and they ask often me like, how can I find my purpose? So how was that journey for you, and was the burnout the pivotal moment that gave you that direction, or did you already from before, like in your career, your choice of studies, like when did you find it basically, and how?
That's such a good question. It was not clear to me until 2017. So between 2013 and 2017 was an unraveling of everything that I was taught, society's expectations, and my want to be, make my parents proud, and they never forced me to do anything in particular, but I had this expectation like I need to be a societal success to make my parents proud. So the moment that it became clear, I remember. So my first book I wrote, it's called "Is Your Fork in Tune?" and it was the science of our beliefs. I was trying to work out the foundation of what I believed in, and then as soon as I launched that,
You say, is your fork tuned? What's the name of the book?
Your fork in tune?
Okay, so
Is
people can
fork,
look it
like
up.
a tuning fork? Is your fork
Yeah.
in tune? So in that book, it was the science behind our beliefs, and it was more for me to work out what did I believe in. And as soon as I launched that book, 3 days after is when I went into the deep depression, and I realized now that I had created this idea, and now it was time to learn it. um, and so in that book, I talk about finding. Actually, it was in the next book, in How to Stop Your Depression. That's when I sort of realized it's like, okay, so what is it that this finding of this passion, right, Cecil, this curiosity. And in that, one of the things, Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, I watched a talk about how if you don't know your passion, follow your curiosity. And so that stuck with me. That was, I'd done enough unraveling that I was like, okay, so what is it that I want to do? And so it's like, what am I curious about? And this is where the love and passion of being in nature started to show itself. And that's when I finally was like, I'm going to do a permaculture design course. I love nature. I want to be around people who love nature. And so it was following that piece from there, because there's a lot of things that you may not know that you don't know. So I didn't even know anything about syntropic agroforestry, but I learnt about it at the permaculture design course. So then I flew to Malaysia and learnt about that. And then that led me down the track of something's really important about soil. So then I started to learn about soil, and it just kept honing down and getting more and more clear. And then that's when I learned about regenerative agriculture, and then that's when I was like, I need to grow my own food. I need to start to be part of this. So it's if there was one key piece that helped me find that, was to follow your curiosity and find out what makes you tick. What is it? And now I'm so clear. After even 2 years ago, I wasn't this clear. Now I'm very clear that people need to become more self-sufficient. We need to, even if you're just growing your own salad garden and things like that. So now I know my mission on this earth is to help us live a life that is thriving with nature. That I believe that we can have both. We aren't in that direction at the moment, and I want to be a part of that movement towards a world that is more positive. So yeah. So that's I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I think it brings so much value also because I actually, even though I've been so occupied with finding purpose and living a purposeful life and follow your purpose also in your career, I never actually heard that tip on if you don't know your purpose, follow your curiosity. And I think it's a really, really good one because everyone, at least most people I think, would be curious about something. And it could help many people to find their own path as well and ultimately their purpose. And then my thoughts goes to the school system because how school kills creativity, how school kills the learning desire for many, many people. So I don't know if you have any perspectives on that, like because you found this path, you said in 2013 or like later after you came to Bali. But how was it before? Like, did you have any kind of direction? How did you choose your education in the first place and the work you did before this burnout?
Yeah, I think, well, it was very, I was one of those students. Always wanted to be, I always wanted to make my father proud. I always wanted to do the best I could, and so I followed that sort of expectation, not just from my father, but from, okay, to be a good person in society, you need to be good at school. Then you need to get a degree. And then you need to get a good job and get good money. Then you need to get a house, and then you get a family, and that was all in there. So that schooling, I was a good student. I didn't mind it. I was mostly a sports person, so I found my freedom in sports. That's my other passion is that kind of thing. But what it does do is it creates a really strong underlying framework of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to go to school all day, or we're supposed to go to a job all day, and it's for money so we can do things we like. But if we flip it around, I mean, I love the green school here in Bali, and I know there's a few other schools in Bali that have flipped that around, and it's following the curiosity of the child. If, for example, in the green school here, if a child wants to become a firefighter, just say, because they genuinely want to do that, the school will help create a curriculum around that student for their goals. As long as, if that student does want to become a doctor, they'll help them do what they need so that they can still follow that path. So I think that's a game changer in helping us not have to spend from 2012 to 2017 of an unraveling of what the world, I thought, my interpretation of what I thought the world needed us to do. I think that could be important. It could save a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that you touch upon those expectations because from what I see, we all have expectations to ourselves, which basically comes from the society, parents, school system, whatever we grow up in. And as teenagers and kids and early adults, we might be more curious and like searching, who am I, what do I want? But then those expectations of others or from others mostly win. So you choose what you think is expected of you, right? Because we are social beings and we would like to conform and fit in, and that's the way of doing that, right? But the challenge for me, I think, or for many people, is when you over time and long into your adult life still follows other people's expectations. It's a programming for you. Then it's so much more difficult to break free from those expectations and follow your own path. And maybe that's why many end up in a burnout. Maybe that's why the burnout for some might be this shift in life where they either dare to be more true to themselves and follow their own path and train themselves to not be so occupied with other people's expectations, or they settle with what's there already and they might not end up really, really happy and maybe not even healthy in the long term, because suppressed expectations, suppressed needs will build up as physical and mental challenges over time. So my thoughts go to the younger generation, and I am a mom of 3, and I know at least the 2 oldest, they are 16 and 18 now. They both asked, what do you expect from me? Like, do you expect me to become this or that kind of education or have some kind of profession? And I try to say the most important thing for me is for you to be happy. So follow your heart and try to do something that makes you happy. And money, of course, can make life easier, but it might not necessarily bring you happiness. So I think if you, as you're saying, Hayley, search for what you are passionate about, what you're curious about, what gives you joy in learning, and then the money might follow, hopefully, at least enough to live a good life.
That's the philosophy of the Ikigai. Have you heard of Ikigai?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the blue zones when I visited your farm. So we are on this trip here, currently in Argentina. We have been to Okinawa in Japan. We will go to Costa Rica next, and we will go to Sardinia and Italy, and maybe later we will do the second two. But yeah, Ikigai is really important. But you, please share. Have you been working around that model?
Well, I just think it's such a clever model to follow, and that's to find something in the center of what is it you love to do, what is it that you're good at, what is it that you will help others, and what is it that will make money. If you can find the sweet spot in those 4, if you just Google Ikigai in diagrams, you'll see that diagram. And I think I'm only just now finally connecting. It was only about 2 weeks ago I finally connected the last sort of piece. I found the sweet spot, and that is so exciting to see that, and it's so interesting. I've never in my life been so clear of my path. How it's going to unfold, I don't know, but nothing will shake me from this path, because it's so very clear. It's so interesting. It's been a journey of spending 10 years of sort of searching, and it got more and more clear, of course, in the second half of that. But the first half was about unraveling and forgetting everything, and to a point, I remember the actual significant point that really allowed me to trust in this new path. And I was sitting on a jetty in Sanur in Bali. And so in these jetties, they're 20 meters out into the ocean, there's no nature, nothing around. You're just sitting on this wood, sort of, not wood, cement, rock jetty. And I was sitting there and this surrendering, and I said to the universe, I said, look, I don't know what my path or mission is meant to be. I just know it has to be around thriving with nature. And like I sort of was saying this out loud, and so I will surrender. I don't know what that's supposed to look at. Whatever's in front of me, that's kind of where the abundance and the energy is flowing, I will trust that. And as I was thinking that and making that decision, a ladybug landed on my hand. And I was nowhere near any nature. And I was like, what is this little creature doing out here? That doesn't need to be out in the middle of this ocean. So that was a sign for me that nature was listening, and that I was on the right path. And so I really fully just was like, yep, okay, that's my sign. I surrender. Let's see where this goes. And I'm so grateful that I did.
Did you look up anything around what this ladybug, does it have some kind of meaning if you look it up?
I did at the time. I can't remember what it is now. I always, if there's an animal or something speaking to me, I always look at its totem. But I can't remember at the time. But it was just knowing that little creature was way out of where it should be was enough of a sort of matrix glitch for me to go, okay.
So maybe it's even just a sign that you are on the right path in surrendering to thriving with nature, whatever that might entail, right?
what's a really key point is that decision, it didn't mean the next day I went and learnt about nature. The next day I was, because I had been doing many, many businesses. I've done, since I was 21, I started creating. I knew there was something I needed to do, some business, and I have done so many, and all of them would get to a point that I was just like, this isn't it. I'm trying to squeeze the last drop, and it's not it. And so this was a moment in my life where one of the last businesses before this one, and I knew, and it had squeezed me so much, but on my shoulder was tapping an opportunity to go and support someone else in their business, and the abundance was there, the flow was there, but it was this real glitch of like, no, I'm supposed to be doing something for myself. I need to do this. And that was the surrendering piece, that even though I was surrendering to whatever it will be in thriving with nature, I was making a decision to stop being an entrepreneur for a moment and go and support someone else's business. So it seemed kind of ironic if you looked at the face of it, but I knew I was letting go of fighting upstream, and I was letting go and going downstream and letting it unfold naturally. And that was a very key turning point. So yeah, it was significant.
And I just want to comment on, I think it's great that you are open also about these things. I know from many societies, those kind of spiritual things like you are talking about might not be what people might believe in, or like they can think is some kind of superficial thing, and you believe in weird stuff. And for those, it's a choice, of course. If you think that you are by yourself in this world, or if you're connected in some way to other people or to the universe. But I think regardless of if you believe in that bigger universal connection, I think you can all, or most people can relate to that we all have some kind of inner voice, like we have an intuition, but most people are like drugged down, not for real, but like from the society, from the work, from the business, from the programming, from the expectations, everything we have to do or should do or need to do. So we tend to not take time to stop and ask what is really important for me. And I think when you start to ask those questions, you will and start to train to listen to the voice or the answers you get. Maybe you don't get all that many answers in the beginning, but they will start to come. So follow your intuition. And then if you start there, at least for me, it might be different for you and others, but then when you see that, okay, I'm following my intuition, I follow like my guidance there, and then next step might be, I will be open for looking around what is revealing, what kind of people do I meet, what kind of coincidences show up, is there just a coincidence, or is it more like something that's supposed to happen? So I think that's a really, really beautiful way of explaining how you follow also your path and let yourself be guided, because it is hard when you break out of the role you have had, the expectations from the society, and you were even like with $200 in your pocket starting all over in a new country. It is really tough, I can only imagine. And then having something to lean on is, I think, so important to be robust and to manage to walk that path and stick to it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's the intuition is probably one of the most significant learnings. It's interesting because I did the book on the science behind our beliefs, and that's when I became a little bit more of a believer of what some people would call superstitions or spirit or supernatural. It was sort of a grounding point, and in that moment, there was a very big significant unraveling week where I was working in a company. This is right before this was in June, July of 2013, and it was October when I finally went to, when I flew to Bali. In those few months, that was the pinnacle of real depression, and because I'm a Taurus, I'm very strong-headed. If I'm focused on something, it's very hard to move me if you cannot convince me otherwise. So I have that very strong will. And so that's why I was pushing into this depression, and for 12 months had that depression. And then my CEO at the time recommended I go and do this breath work, cathartic breath work. And it was just game changing. And all it did was it cracked open this ability to listen to my voice. And I didn't know how to listen to my voice back then. I didn't know what was me and what was what I should be doing. And so that when that first happened, the very first whisper was the word Bali. I had been before, I'd been on a business course to help write the book and things like that. But and then I surrendered, and I ended up having an anxiety attack in the boardroom. It was a very, very profound moment. That was a wake up of like, there's something wrong here. There's something not right. And so I ended up walking away from a paid job. I ended up doing a cash in hand job at the local festival. So I was doing spray tattoos, getting cash in hand jobs, just enough money, and then to fly to Bali. But even on that journey, I kept saying, all right, universe, I fully surrender. What is it that I need to do? And I remember having two significant points in this moment. These are very key moments. And I managed to get an opportunity to drive someone's car down to Tasmania, which is where my dad lived. So this car happened to be a BMW Z3 Roadster, which had been on my vision board for years. So all of a sudden I surrendered, and I got the opportunity to drive the car that had been on my vision board for so long. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But what the most amazing thing was, I was on the plane, I had no money, and I said to the universe, I need to get from the airport to pick up this car for free or no money, because I have nothing. And everyone knows that most of the time to leave out of an airport is quite expensive unless you're getting picked up. And so I was walking down to the train station, and I went down on the escalator, and a woman came straight to me and said, I have a free ticket, do you want it? And it got me to the car for free. Never in my life had something like that happened. And so I was just like, this is crazy. And then the next day I did something else significant in regards to, I'd lost my headphones at the time. They were the new ones. And someone ended up giving me a free pair. On that road trip down in the middle of nowhere, someone had, I've got a spare one, you can have it. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it was, and that's when I just sort of went, all right, just follow your intuition, let go, and try not to get too caught up in our head and what is meant to be, and just follow.
And for me, my shift also from believing it's me, myself, and I basically in this world, even though I have family and friends and kids and everything, so, and to move into believing that I am part of something bigger, I might be guided, and there might be some destiny not like given to me. I have to work on it myself and put in my own actions and steps and everything, but having those kind of support moments, I also have experienced several of those after I realized that I might not be alone. And I guess I had them for all the years before as well, but you might not see it like that. So, but for me, that's also part of being more robust and resilient in my path as well, when you feel you have those kind of support moments when you travel, and especially when things are difficult and you really need that help, right? So, and talking about being resilient, because also one of my biggest passions over the last 9 or 10 years has been revolving around the topic called growth mindset. I don't know if you're familiar with growth mindset and the research from Carol Dweck from Stanford in the USA. But I was doing a master's degree when I was 39 till 41. And when I did this study for several reasons, but the most important reason was to see, can I bring the experience and the background I have from developing people and leaders and organizations into the school system, because I saw so many people in work life. So you either have those top 10% talents, which everyone wants to hire and keep and develop and train, And then you might have a percentage in the other end, which the organizations would like to get rid of, brutally often. And then you have maybe 80% in the middle who are doing their best, but really not get to tap into their potential because they are not really given the opportunities or the good leaders to help them. So I was thinking, what can we do much earlier? So education system was a natural place for me to start to look. Can I maybe bring some of my background? Because I had this hypothesis that we have some similarities between good leaders and good teachers, and maybe also between the good work environments with the good classroom and school environments, because we are all humans who needs many of the same things to be able to grow, learn, develop, and perform. So in that journey and that master's thesis work, I met a teacher on holiday, maybe another coincidence, and I told her about the studying and the reason for me doing this and the combination of organizational and teaching and like the school and workplace things like I just told about. And then she said, have you heard about Carol Dweck and growth mindset research? And I looked it up and it just hit my heart immediately, because for many, many years, human potential has been my passion and my path and guiding me in my career especially, and also my own life, my own development. And the mindset research say that the brain is so malleable, we can increase and enhance intelligence, talents, even change our personality if we would like to throughout life. It's not something we are born with which is fixed. You can develop. And the mindset research shows when you know about this malleable brain and you believe in it, we become more robust, because if we fail, we tend to more easily get up again, because we can see it as a learning opportunity. If we are on a journey where it's many challenges, we might be more robust and resilient and continue walking, because we also see it as a way of growing. We might not take feedback, negative feedback, so badly, because we also see that as a way of growing. And so this kind of thinking patterns might be really unconscious in most people. How do I think? How do I feel? How do I respond in different situations? So for me, starting MadeToGrow was to bring out this knowledge and the actual tools, how we can reprogram those thinking patterns, those emotional patterns, those behavioral patterns, so we actually manage to achieve our goals and follow our dreams, go outside the comfort zone, be robust, resilience to change, etc. So I hear from your story also, Hayley, that there are some quite pretty much resilience and robustness here. So from this long introduction about me and the growth mindset journey, but since you didn't know about it, I thought it was, and because it's my passion as well to talk about this, but did you always be, were you always this robust? Like, was this like a quality you had from childhood? Did your parents reinforce it? Like, how has been your mindset journey, so to say?
Thank you. First I want to say what you're doing is amazing. I think it's so important. I think the mindset is just everything. For me, I think it started from, there's two areas of my childhood that I think were significant in helping me with that. Maybe three. The first is obviously being a child in the forest and just having a bit more independence and not being babied or anything so much. That, you know, I look at kids around here that are just so much, a little bit more robust because they're not hovered over with helicopter parents. So there's a little bit of that, but the two things that I think of are, the first one is I was an athlete. So sport as a kid teaches you, especially my sport, it was basketball. It still is. I'm still very passionate about it. I just don't do it, unfortunately. But it's team sports teaches you community and being able to work together as a team. But the mindset of an athlete, you have to be resilient. You have to get back up. You have to, in the middle of a game, in the middle of a season. I mean, there were that's definitely where my muscle was tested, because it was, emotional. And but the sports, I started to get into the training with Basketball Australia, and so that you start to think about sports psychology and those kind of things. So that's where I was first introduced to, the season can be long in a basketball game. So, okay, you've lost this one, but it's okay. Let's get it back. Let's do the next one. So that kind of mentality was probably first introduced to me through sport. And then the next one is an interesting one. But at one stage, my parents joined multi-level marketing. You know what that is, an MLM? Yes. But in that MLM, there was a lot of self-development books and encouragement. And so that's when I first got introduced to personal development. So I was reading, at the age of 14, I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was reading, I was listening. It was all audio cassettes back then, the little cassette tape. My parents would listen to it in the car, and, it was mindset about being positive and all of this kind of thing. And so that's definitely subconsciously I was introduced to the power of the mind and all of those kind of things, and realizing how powerful it is. And so that those two doors of being an athlete and personal development, I definitely think helped pave the way for me to get through all of this journey and stretch the muscle, train the muscle, the mind muscle. And yeah, I think, it was really tested when I first went through depression for that 12 months. That was where I had to really have faith almost, that I will get out of this. I remember walking with my dad and saying, I don't know how, or I'm going to get out of this, but when I do, I'll write a book. And so I did. But it's, I think that's, and also my personality, people as a kid, I was people called me stubborn. So, but I'm flipping that over to saying I'm very strong-willed. To me, that feels a bit more positive, and so if I say I'm going to do something, people know I'm going to do it. If I'm committed and I'm anchored in, nothing will stop me. It's like a freight train moving forward. So I think I'm very grateful that I have the strong will, and that might have come from all of the things I mentioned before. My dad was quite disciplined, and I think discipline, although you resist as a teenager and you resist all of that, I think it really teaches you to be disciplined in yourself. And so I guess that would be the third sort of.
And I also hear that we have some similarities in our stories. I think I was born stubborn. Of course, we have some personality traits from birth, right? We have something with us. It doesn't mean having a growth mindset and being malleable that you are like a blank sheet. You come out in the world with some dispositions, obviously. And I think one of mine was being stubborn. So I heard that all the time through my upbringing. I was so stubborn in so many ways, and probably really annoying. And I know for sure I still can be stubborn and annoying. But the stubbornness is like I say, you have a strong will, and it feels better, and it's a really, really nice engine to fuel your motivation and your resilience and stamina, basically, when things are tough, or if you have set a goal. So, and I didn't do sports like in traditional sport. I was doing horseback riding, and I was being with horses for many years, and that's also quite hard work, and I had to walk for many kilometers every Saturday to go to the stable and the horses. So I think, like you're saying, being a child today, parents are often like curling too much or being helicopter parents, which is all in good intentions, obviously, but it might make kids more weak, maybe, dependent and less robust, right? So,
and realize that they can't. This almost subconscious transference of I cannot do this. I need my parent around me. I can't think of it, so I'll just that safety net is there, which is 100%. The intention is safety and all of those kind of things. But I think what I've noticed from living in the Asian cultures of kids walking around the street here, kids at 8 driving motorbikes and You know, and then I remember doing a trip in Thailand and Africa, like seeing these young kids having a bit more freedom to make mistakes and learn from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have that, because, and also another woman back in Norway, I remember she said, like, in the early stages of me working in the school system and trying to learn how to work in the school system, because it is a huge difference from being in organizations with adult people and so on. So, as she said, kids or people in general obviously live either up or down to other people's expectations. So if a teacher has high expectations or low expectations, the student will mostly perform according to that expectation. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and parents likewise. And I think also from working with the mindset development, for me at least, it has built a so strong mastery belief. It's like, I think I will be able to handle almost everything that the world is throwing at me, basically. I might not handle everything, but just having the belief that I can go out in the world and do the things I would like to do, and I will find a way to handle it. That's a really, really, like, the safety you feel inside is so highly valuable for me, at least. And I think as adults, parents, teachers, leaders, we have to remember that we have to set expectations high. Maybe not too high. It's difficult to know how high they should be, because you have the comfort zone, you have the learning zone, and then you have the panic zone, right? So let's try to be in the learning zone for ourselves and others. So
Yeah,
so that's
the comfort zone. I mean, all of this I've been able to has given me the confidence to do what I'm doing. So I live an hour and a half away from most of my friends, supermarkets, in a tiny little cabin that it would fit in most Western, lounge rooms, in the middle of the jungle, where there's king cobras, there's lots of different things. And so when I first moved out, the interesting thing is lots of people said, "You're so brave," and it's and I found it interesting, but it is. I mean, the fact is, you have to have some confidence in yourself that you're putting yourself in a place that's, it's wild, it's jungle, and so you have to have the confidence that no matter what happens, you will work it out, you will deal with it, and be okay with that. But you have to be able to step out of that comfort zone to achieve the things that you want to achieve, because if we stay in that comfort zone, we're wired, the primal brain is wired to stay safe, eat as much as it can, and be as lazy as possible to conserve energy. And so if we let the primal brain master us, that's when we turn into people that sit and watch Netflix and never do anything with our life. And then you have to use up the prefrontal cortex brain, is that brain that says, I'm gonna lose weight, and then it's the primal brain that turns around and says, I'm gonna have this donut now. So it's that constant battle. But if we can utilize that prefrontal cortex and really think things through, and then be okay with the primal brain screaming, this is scary, this is no, let's stay safe, let's not move, being okay and nurturing that almost 2-year-old child brain to it's okay, we can do this, we've got this, and be okay with that primal brain screaming, this is uncomfortable, this is not safe, this is not, let's save energy, all of those things. So yeah.
And it's difficult because you have both the programming, which, like, it takes up 90% at least of your behavior and your thinking and emotional patterns. So it will always try to stop you from changing something, because change is scary for those programs, right? And the emotional side of our brains. But then you have the society, in addition, who is putting everything nicely around us, so it's so easy to just go and have that chocolate, and it's so easy to just not move around because you always have something that can take you. Like before, you had normal bikes, you have to use your own feet to bike and get forward. Now you can just put an engine to the bike and you don't have to do all that hard work, or like, so everything is like set up for us in a way which helps us be lazy, and that makes it even more difficult to change habits. So I think the topic you are bringing up is super important, because I think regardless of if it's lifestyle changes to lose weight, which was your example, or if it's to do some other kind of changes, leave your job, even though might be the boss is horrible, or the work environment is self-destructive, whatever, we tend to stick with what we know, even though it's not good for us. So it's about self-leadership, it's about consciousness, about what's important for you, but still your brain, as you say, is working against you. So what is the secret you have to actually manage to do those changes, which most people might not manage to do or dare to do?
The first is you really have to know your why. So you have to, for me, it has to be a very good reason why. And if you're comfortable with that why, if it moves you emotionally and actually physically moves you, then you have to be okay with things not being okay. That it's okay to not be okay. It's okay, especially when you're starting out a business, to be struggling, to make mistakes, to look like a silly person on a YouTube video. You made a mistake, or it's being okay, having your own back, I think is really key. And that was a big game changer for me, and that happened in about 2019, when one day, this is interesting I bring this, one day I was on the treadmill and I was looking at the mirror, and the first voice was like, oh, look at that, this is that, why, ugh, you're so, ugh. And then I was like, hey, hang on.
From looking at yourself, you mean?
Yeah. My natural things were to look at the things that were wrong, and then there was this voice that came out and said, no, the world is hard enough. I'm going to have my own back. And so I started to be a cheerleader, the cheerleaders on the side. I was like, I'm going to be my own cheerleader. And then all of a sudden I was running and I was confident. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And so I just, I retired. It doesn't always happen. There's still times where I might say some things critical or whatever. And I still, we all have those moments. We are human, and that's the human experience. But what I find now more so is that I have my own back, and I'm like, you've got this. You can do this. And even if you can't, it'll take you to somewhere where we need to be. So it's like being your best cheerleader, and not relying on anyone else, just being that for you is huge. It's really, that was a big point of like, oh, I don't have to be critical of myself. I can actually just go, yeah, you've got this. It's okay. You're fine. You're sweaty, but that's fine. Look at you running hard. Like, being supportive and that nurturing, looking at yourself like you are a child, and how would you want to speak to that child? What are those sentences? You don't want to speak to a child the way you probably speak to yourself. So it's like, hang on, let's nurture myself and do that. And that gives you, like, doesn't matter what anyone else says or whatever ever other things. I think have your own back is really important.
So to summarize that, so finding a purpose, or have some meaning and direction in life, which is important, and then
being okay with not being okay.
Yeah, so the robustness, the growth mindset is the second, and then having your own back and being your own cheerleader, which for me translates to self-confidence or self-love or self-esteem. And for me, it was a huge realization when one of my daughters went through eating disorder and depression some years back. I learned from a TED Talk. A woman talked about self-esteem as she said, it's not possible to develop eating disorder and depression and similar psychological challenges if you have a good self-esteem. And I was like, of course, that makes so much sense. Because if you like yourself, if you tend to talk positive to yourself in your mind, you see yourself in the mirror and you are okay with yourself, you are valuable even without all the performance all the time and all those outside measures. So the self-esteem is extremely important. And like for me, I'm counting now, because in Made to Grow we have 8 topics, which is meaning, we have mindset, we have self-esteem, we have touched upon, which also fuels the motivation, right? Like as you started out with, follow your curiosity, like what are you curious about, and learn from that. So you have learning is another one of those 8. And those fuels your motivation for actually moving forward if you have those elements. And then I also learned along this path that relationships is extremely important. Like from studying Blue Zones, which you also mentioned, top of the list says the most important factor for longevity and good health is relationships, because we are made to connect with people. And that led again to the final 8 topic, which is health. So those are the 8 topics. And you talk so beautifully about all of them in your way and through your own story. I just had to wrap it up like this, basically, because I think that's if we nurture those areas in life, we will thrive both personally and professionally. And I think it's so underestimated. Like when I'm talking about this stuff, many people find it obvious, but it takes some time to convince leaders and organizations why these kind of self-development focus areas are so important for them to have employees perform and feel well-being and loyalty to their company. So what is your experience from these kind of topics from your business life, your corporate life?
Do you mean as running a business or as being an employee?
It could be both. Like you have, if you have been a leader yourself, or you are a leader yourself, or from the time you were in an organization being led by others, can you relate to these topics when it came to being in an organization in regards to performing and be able to master your work?
Yeah, I think, that's interesting. I've had such I've been in so many different industries, the finance industry, the mining industry, the tourism industry. It's really, and I've been out of normal jobs for 10 years, being over here and having to be employed online.
Just commenting. Might be that the normal job is not what's natural for us.
Exactly. But it's so interesting, those things. Community, I mean, this is why, people have in Australia, there's it's beer o'clock. So there's this social aspect of getting together with your workmates and sort of blowing off steam of the week. And so there's that community aspect. And more recently, there are companies starting to think about the health and the mindset and things. But I think there's still a long way to go in that kind of aspect. For me, it's something that I've been listening to. I mean, Gary Vee is very good about teaching you to be kind, and just your employees are everything, and to really understand them and understand their lives and what's important to them, which is that meaning and that purpose. Is there meaning and purpose somewhere else? Maybe, supporting that and going beyond the business line. You still need to make the decisions to make sure the business is successful, but making sure your staff are really happy. I mean, I've been through some experiences on both ends. I was part of an organization working with them for 1.5 years, and the communication, that connection piece wasn't there. I wasn't looked after, and they stopped paying me, but they said, oh, we'll pay you as soon as we can, and dragged it on for 6 weeks, not thinking about, hey, but I need to put food on the table, I need to do this. And so what was interesting is, like, if you had said, we're struggling, we probably need to let you go, clean, clear, understanding, I would be disappointed, but okay. But because I think the boss at the time was afraid of confrontation, was afraid of, wanted to try and make it work, it caused me stress. And so they hadn't gotten out of their head. And so I've used that in other times where when the business got, we go through ebbs and flows in business. And when the business got tight, I had to let go a virtual assistant, and I could see this path happening. And so I started communicating with this VA, saying, hey, we might have to reduce your hours. And being completely open, authentic, and just saying what's really going on. This virtual assistant had so much respect for me, and it was highlighted because they said, it's okay, Hayley, because you're always open about this. Thank you for sharing with me. And we reduced, and then I had to let them go for a couple of weeks. And I said to them, look, if you end up finding a job that you love and you have to, I have to take that risk, but what's important to me is that you're happy and you can feed your family and those things. So it's starting to flip it around and realize that we're humans, that we have lives, and putting the human soul in that community that you're trying to grow ahead of that, because then what happens is that person will probably want to come back and work for you because you're creating that environment that creates that growth mindset. And talking with them, do you want to learn about this? Which way do you want to go in the direction of your job? You might have an idea that they want to do this, but they actually like this part of the job. It's like, all right, well, let's nurture that and we'll find someone else for this part. So bringing that growth mindset in and that communication, creating a tribe and thinking the greater good of all of them over just profits is imperative these days for survival. Definitely.
I think that's a beautiful piece to wrap up with. Actually, I think it's like already an hour soon. It's been a really great conversation and so much valuable insights and learning you share from your journey. I think what you say about organizations, I think when organizations themselves are purposeful and that dare to ask employees about their own life purpose and how can we maybe merge and connect your purpose in life to our organizational purpose, I think you will have super loyal people if you in addition gives them a learning and growth opportunities to be there and a psychological safety and growth mindset environment to thrive in. So I think the future leaders should really embrace these kind of aspects and not fear them. Because that's partly some of the arguments I get when I try to talk about the importance of offering such personal development programs in organizations, is that they fear that the employees will leave because they come to think about other things they rather would like to do. And then I say, maybe that's a good thing, because maybe you don't have the right people on board, and you should start to attract the right people for your purpose and organization. So I think it wraps it nicely up with the personal side of development, and then we all walk through life with some hardships and some great stuff. It's ups and downs, and we need all of those elements to thrive, both with ourselves and with nature. So, and with career. So, anything you would like to close off with, Hayley? Like what's the most important thing you would like the listeners to leave this conversation with from the conversation we had?
I think the main thing is know that you can do it. Whatever it is you're thinking about, if you're here and you're listening to this right now and you're thinking about something, you're a little bit nervous, know that you can do it. If you don't know enough, you'll learn a bit. If you're scared to do it alone, you'll find the people to do it with you. So it's don't give up on whatever it is, and that you can do it. And you can grow and develop around that. So hold on to whatever that is, that why, and just and just go for it. Yeah.
And some wise person, or maybe more, says the more scared you feel when thinking about some goal or dream you have, probably the more right path it is for you to go and explore. So if you really feel anxious about it, it might be for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Hayley. It's been a great conversation. Great to meet you again. So it will not be the last time, I hope. I will for sure come back to
I'm sure
Bali.
not. And
And
I'll
if you ever
come
come
visit
to
in
Norway
Norway
when we come back,
whenever you're
you
there.
are most welcome. Sorry?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely. And, it's so important to have these conversations about mindset and growth mindset and all of those kind of things. I think people forget to have these conversations. So it's great what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And likewise, it's really important to help people to thrive in life and with nature. And I know your platform is full of information and courses and guidelines for people to follow if they would like to go such a path. So we will also leave the link to this page in the bio from this podcast. So thank you again, and I look so much forward to our next conversation and whatever time that will be, Hayley. So enjoy a
Wherever.
nice and warm Bali and see you again.
Thank you. I will. Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.